Welcome, Annie, to XpoNorth Digital Shorts. Hello.
You too. It's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's so great to see you. You are actually an XpoNorth alum. We are very sorry that we're not seeing you in person this year, but very excited to see you digitally as you represent Bookbub. Annie, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, of course. So I work on the partner relations side at Bookbub. I lead our publisher relations team. So what that means is that my team members and I are helping all of our publishers to use our tools, get their books out to readers. Bookbub is a digital discovery service, so helping readers find great books, basically. And we work with publishers to make sure they know how to do that.
First of all, awesome job. And second of all, Annie, you have a background in the publishing world, and then you moved to Bookbub. What gets you so excited about this kind of what Bookbub does?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually started out as an editor. I edited mostly books for young adults for about 6 years in New York before moving up to Boston to work for Bookbub. And I actually started out being aware of Bookbub as a reader and a customer myself. I got the Bookbub emails and I found that I was buying a book or two a week. So for those of you who don't know, Bookbub, actually one of our main services is that we send deals out by email. And so I found the deals irresistible. So I knew as a customer that it really worked. And I think to me, having worked on inside the publisher, making books happen, I know how hard it is sometimes to actually get great books out to readers and make sure that the word gets out. So I was really excited about working for a company that did exactly that.
Yeah, it's a really powerful thing to be able to reach people in their homes. We have so much more time to read right now. So as like a publisher, as a punter, so someone who wants to use Bookbub just to read, and then also maybe as an author, because you guys represent self-published authors too, is that right?
So self-published authors can work with us directly as well. So we are not an agency or a publisher. We don't represent anyone, but we work directly with publishers, authors to help them get their books out there.
That's really awesome. Okay, so let's put one mask on as the punter. If I just wanted to use Bookbub because I love reading, how do I do this?
So it's pretty easy. Go to bookbub.com and you can sign up totally for free. So you only ever pay for something when you're actually purchasing a book. It's totally free to browse our website, get our emails, and you basically decide what categories you're most interested in receiving from us. So we offer more than 40 different subcategories, genres that you can choose from. So maybe thrillers or biographies, whatever types of books you most like to read. And then you let us know where you like to buy your ebooks. So are you a Kindle user? Do you read on your iPad, etc.? And once you've selected your preferences, you can start getting the emails and hopefully find some really good deals that you like.
That's awesome. And then because I really am not a very good reader, but I love audiobooks, is there like an audiobook option?
Yes, there is. So great question. We actually just launched an audiobook service last year. So it's not on bookbub.com. It's a separate brand to help keep things a little separate so that it's less confusing. So to find audiobook deals, you would go to our other brand, Chirp, CHIRP. So chirpbooks.com is where you'd sign up. And it's very similar. It's totally free to sign up. And we let you know about really great audiobook deals. And the big difference there is that we're actually selling the books directly on Chirp. So once you find a book that you like, you just purchase it straight from chirpbooks.com.
And that's really interesting because I want to make very clear, the reason why I'm asking you these pretty basic questions for you, so thank you for answering them, is not to do one long infomercial on Bookbub, but I was so impressed that when you were giving your talk at XpoNorth, how many people in the audience were publishers and also how many people in the audience were authors, and they were just curious about the mechanics of how this works, especially for their audiences. How does this reach their audiences?
Right.
How does it help them? So, okay, from a publisher's point of view, how do they engage and collaborate with you guys?
Yeah, so most publishers are working with us already. So if you work at a publisher and you're not aware whether that's the case, feel free to reach out to us. But many publishers are working directly with a member of my team. And we actually, everything that we feature is editorially curated. So basically what a publisher would do is submit a book that they'd like to be featured on Bookbub. And we have a whole separate editorial team that goes through all the submissions that we receive, and they're hand selecting the books that would be sending out via email every day, whether those are the deals, or in the US, we have an email of featured new releases, for example. And so the editors would make their selections, and then at that point, if a publisher wants to go ahead and book a promotion with us, then they would pay for that advertising spot, essentially.
Okay, and can I ask, because you're in in the relationship between, you work within relations. So what does that look like? How do you cultivate relationships with publishers?
Yeah, so, well, unfortunately, a lot of what we like to do isn't possible right at this moment. So my team does go to a lot of conferences, which sadly are not taking place right now. And we're sad to be missing out on those. And we also try to do a lot of travel to where our publishers are based. So whether it's London to see UK publishers, or coming up to Scotland when we can, or of course going down to New York very frequently, since many of the publishers we work with are based there. In the absence of those options, we're doing a lot of video calls. So it's been really great to check in with everybody and say hello. And we've been trying to be really regular about checking in with all of our different partners, because we know things are changing really fast right now. So we want to make sure that we have the latest.
That's so great. And so I'm imagining the US publishing world is maybe like a little different, or a little, the nuances are a little different than the UK, which are different than all different countries. Are you guys open? You work internationally, I know, with different publishers. And how does that work in terms of reaching your audiences and how you curate things?
Yeah, of course. So we have different account reps who work with different areas. So my colleague Wade is our international account manager. So he's working directly with our publishers based in Canada, the UK, and Australia, which are our other main regions outside the US. And then we have a couple account reps who work with publishers in the US as well. And so they really become the specialist on what their publishers are doing. And so for Wade, you know, he spends a lot of time reading the bookseller so that he's really aware of the UK publishing news. And of course, a lot of time chatting on the phone and on video these days with all of his publishers, and making sure that he stays really up to date on how the trends are different. And then he's also constantly in communication with the editorial team as well, to make sure that the editors are aware of different nuances. So, you know, there are obviously some slightly different genre trends that do well in different regions. So the editors are keeping a really close eye on the data and sort of what performs well for us in different regions. But Wade also provides that sort of extra word of mouth. You know, if he hears from a publisher that something's doing really well for them, he'll pass that along so that our editorial team is in the loop.
That's great, because you know, you guys are also very good at cultivating a community. I think of people that use Bookbub. It's one thing to bond over one particular book, and it's another thing, very powerful thing, to bond over reading in general and books in general. So that's, I think, another strength of Bookbub, that you guys are create a big net. You have a really huge net in terms of your audience. So if I were a self-published author, everyone at the moment, especially during COVID, I'm sure is like working on their manuscript or their book, which might be slightly terrifying submissions team at Bookbub. But how do people who aren't represented by a publisher also engage with you guys?
So it's really easy. We actually have a whole separate team that works directly with all of our self-published clients. And, you know, obviously, since each of those authors, some of them have small companies, but many of them are just a team of one. So they're making contacts with thousands upon thousands of different people all around the world who are publishing their books. And they mostly operate through the partners@bookbub.com email address. So if you're trying to reach out to someone, you can just email partners@bookbub.com, and that's how you reach those folks. And they also, in normal times, go to a lot of conferences and try to meet as many people face-to-face as possible. Especially here in the US, we typically go to a lot of author-focused conferences to make sure that we're hearing from authors directly. And we also have a really great partners blog, which is insights.bookbub.com. And that's another way that we hear from a lot of our partners. We both do interviews with authors and actually post those on the blog. And then we also have a comment section on the blog, and we get a lot of feedback directly from authors that way.
That's awesome, because I think, speaking as a writer, and I know a lot of my other friends feel like this too, the moment you finish a book, the last thing you want to do or have energy for is helping reach an audience yourself or promote it yourself. I mean, everybody has
so overwhelming.
Totally, it's really overwhelming. It's like, God, I'm exhausted. I just created this thing. And, you know, now I can put it on social media, but now what? Like the whole now what? And I think that's just for people out there. It's an amazing avenue to know that there are ways to get your book out there, support systems out there. Can I just ask, and maybe you can't say, which is fine, but in terms of the criteria for people who are submitting books, I know for film festivals, if I were to put my film into a film festival, some have like premiere status, so I can't show it at one. What are the criteria for
Yeah,
some?
so there's some really basic requirements. So for our deals email in particular, which tends to be what most people are asking for and most eager to get included in, we only feature limited time deals. So it has to be a book that's normally at least twice the price of the deal that you're offering. And there's some like length requirements and things like that. So there are some just minimum requirements, and you can find those on our website. But then from there, there's obviously a lot of great books that are submitted that meet our requirements. And part of the value that we offer our readers is that we're not just sending out, hundreds and hundreds of books a day that they have to wade through. We are handpicking one or two great books in each genre for them to check out. So from there, the editors really have to use a large variety of factors to decide what to choose. And it can vary a lot based on genre even. So we find that in some genres, for example, romance, readers really care about what other readers think. So if the book has a ton of 5-star reviews or, has gotten some big reader award, that might be really significant. And then other genres might care more about, the book having been selected for a best of list by a major publication. And it varies a ton, and these things change too. So the editors are always testing out different copy for the blurbs that go out for the books to make sure that they are staying on top of what readers care about most and what they're going to respond to. But they're able to look at, the cover, the description, the reviews from customers, award nominations, all kinds of different things. And they use all of those factors to help make their decisions.
Wow. And okay, so there's so many questions I have in that. First of all, I know we're going to include some links about some data that you guys have collected about readers, how people are reading now, all that kind of good stuff. You have so much amazing insight, I think, into the world of reading. How significantly does Bookbub help publishers and self-published authors find their readers?
It's a great question. I mean, we're one of multiple great tools in the marketing toolbox, of course, but we do have over 20 million readers worldwide that we're reaching. So we do have a really big reach, and we're working very heavily with pretty much all the big publishers and a lot of the big name indie authors that you will have heard of. So I think we are one of the sort of go-to dependable tools that people use.
Wow, I want to be involved. And you have such a cool job. And you really do. So here's my other question, because you were talking, I think the integrity of your teams are pretty amazing, and the amount you guys put into your work. So how do you lead a team virtually during COVID, and a distributed company at that? Because I'm sure your team's spread out in lots of different places.
Definitely, and more so than ever before, because people, have decided where they want to hunker down, and so not everybody's in Boston right now. I think that there's a couple things that we've done that have been really effective, but obviously there's a lot of things we're still learning too. So I'm not going to say our approach is perfect, but one thing that I've found really valuable is continuing to have our team weekly meetings and making sure to do those on video chat so that we can all see each other's faces. And we open up that meeting with a quick tidbit from everyone of something new going on that week. So sometimes it's work related if somebody had something exciting, like a really great book gets submitted, but sometimes it's just a personal anecdote that someone wants to share. And I think that's been helping us stay connected. And then we also use Slack, which I think, a lot of people have been hearing about, especially lately. It's sort of a great virtual work tool. And we actually designated times in the morning and in the afternoon when we're having a quote unquote coffee break, and we'll all get on Slack and just chat a little bit and have some informal social time, because that's the thing we're all missing the most right now, is just having some of those magical social moments where you're really bonding with your coworkers. So we're doing our best to make sure we create those opportunities virtually as well.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, okay, for a total Luddite, because I have downloaded Slack and I am technically supposed to be using it for XpoNorth. But what I find very frustrating is there's a WhatsApp group, a work WhatsApp group. Then there's email, and I call people because I'm old fashioned. And so I end up having to repeat myself on different mediums. So I might have to take some like total Jedi mastery classes from you about Slack later.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's been most useful, because we've always used Slack ever since I joined Bookbub, it's been one of our main tools. And we actually, as part of our onboarding process, when someone new joins the company, we talk a lot about what is the best use case for Slack versus when you should go to email versus when a face-to-face conversation or now a video chat conversation is going to be the most effective, and making sure you sort of have norms at your company or organization around which things should go where, I find is really useful, because otherwise, I agree, it can get really overwhelming and stressful. And I think one thing we've done really well is separate out. We have work-specific Slack rooms where things that are posted there are definitely relevant. Everyone should make sure to catch up and read those, even if they're busy at the moment. And then we also have ones that are specifically for socializing. And obviously it's fun to catch up on those as much as possible, but those are the ones where if you're having a really busy day and you don't have time to check it, then you can sort of relax and know it's okay if you don't necessarily read that whole chat room. You can get back to it and just jump in at a later date. So it's nice to sort of have those two things separated out, so you're not constantly worrying that you're missing something really vital for your job.
Annie, that's really wise. That's really great. Go Bookbub. Okay, two quick things because we're running out of time. I would love a little bit of advice, both for writers and then a second little bit of advice about leading teams. So the one for writers, Annie, you've given me some of the best advice ever for my writing. I really appreciate it. I want other people to be able to benefit from your insights. So for the writers out there who are finishing their manuscripts and might try to work up to either kind of approaching publishers or directly approaching Bookbub, do you have any little bits of insight for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think a piece of advice that I always have given is still, and maybe especially relevant right now, which is that publishing is a very long-term industry.
Mm-hmm.
It usually takes something like 1 to 2 to even more than that years from the point where you actually find a publisher who's interested in your work to your book actually being out there in the universe. So, in normal times, I will give this advice when people ask me about chasing trends. I used to work in young adult publishing, and it's a very trend-focused part of the business. And, it never really made sense to try to chase a trend, because by the time your book would come out, teenagers would be onto something completely new. And I think that's pretty relevant right now too. I wouldn't worry too much about, how is my book relevant in this particular moment, or do I have to change everything about my book because of what's going on right now? Obviously, there are some thoughtful ways where we might want to reflect. If you're writing contemporary fiction, potentially that's worth thinking about. But also, just like normal, it's going to be a long time probably before that book reaches readers. Unfortunately, that's the reality of the industry. And so I would say just focus on writing the best book possible and not necessarily chasing something that's super of the moment.
Hey, that's awesome. That's winning advice, I think. Thank you. And now for people who are leading teams, who are distributed and virtually, for the leaders out there, for the team leaders, do you have any little bits of advice that you found helpful?
Yeah, so I've been listening a lot to HBR's Women at Work podcast, which I highly recommend if people haven't discovered it. It's full of tips. It's specifically geared towards women, but I think it's helpful for everyone. It's honestly just about how to be a busy professional and conquer different challenges that come up in your professional life. And one thing they've been talking about a lot is just how much more many people have on their plates right now, especially women, right? But a lot of people, whether it's that you're caring for an older relative or that you have kids at home because of schools being closed. And so I think there's a lot of extra burdens that people are dealing with right now. And so as a leader, I've just been trying to be as open and hopefully welcoming as possible so that people can be honest about what's going on with them. And I think we all need to be a little more flexible right now about how work gets done, making sure we're really prioritizing the things that are important and maybe letting go of things that can sit for a little while, because it's just such a challenging time. And I think expecting everything to carry on as normal is probably unrealistic.
And that's great. And you're quite right. This is an opportunity for actually more transparency and like a little bit more of honesty within the team and trust about where people are at and where they're coming from. So that's well said. Annie, thank you so much. I'm so sorry we're out of time. There's a million more things I'd like to ask you, but it's awesome for you to join us at XpoNorth Digital Shorts.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.